I am joined once again by Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. You know, Jerry, on a personal note, you have made a remarkable physical transformation from last season to this season. What prompted that?
Well, it was done deliberately, and I wanted to lose some weight. At last training camp, I looked at my pictures and looked at the way I was feeling and said, hey, I needed to get some of this weight off, and went about that and didn't have a drink for a year, and basically watched my intake and lost 55 pounds. So thank you, Jim.
55 pounds. Was that tough to lose?
Toughest thing I've ever done, and I've done some tough things, but I thought that you could just do, let's say, stop drinking and it would just come off, but that didn't happen for me. But it's something that I'm real proud of, and it feels good, and there's nothing wrong.
It would seem maybe there were some other changes. Anything you can talk about?
Well, I basically certainly just had to discipline. I had to almost will it, and in doing so, I look forward to the time when I could look better, my appearance would look better, and so some of those things I wanted to. If I lost 55 pounds, I certainly wanted to be able to wear some better looking clothes and maybe change that appearance up a little bit.
All right. Listen, when you look back at some of the decisions you've made, and certainly there have been some tough ones over the past decade, guys come, guys go, players you grow attached to, you have to turn loose, and then of course you come to Troy Aikman. I mean, a very, very special guy to the franchise. How tough was it to let Troy Aikman go?
Well, I almost am still going through withdrawals. I never had a time in the National Football League when Troy wasn't either going to be or was the quarterback. And we were so fortunate to have picked him as our quarterback, made the commitment we made to him, and then had him turn out the way that he turned out. His terrific work ethic, his focus, the role that he or his expectations of his teammates, all of those things played into making a tremendous contribution to the success we had in the 90s.
You know, so much has been made about your relationship with Jimmy Johnson, but go back to the initial marriage between Jimmy and Troy. Things were not that good when they first started. In fact, I would imagine you probably found yourself in the middle of a number of one-sided discussions. Well, a couple of bitter discussions between the two of them back in the day.
Well, there was always, Troy always physically was outstanding and a tremendous prospect. But if you recall, we drafted Steve Walsh at exactly the same time. And Steve came from the same system at Miami that Jimmy Johnson and his staff had come from. So that created quite a bit of pressure. But it was never an issue as far as I was concerned. Troy Aikman was going to be our quarterback in the future. We were able to trade Steve, get some good draft picks. But certainly during those early years, I'm sure Jimmy was compromised by the fact that he had his college quarterback that had had such success for him in college in there competing against Troy. Now, I know for a fact it bothered Troy.
I was about to say, you saw this very clearly. I mean, you used the first pick in the draft on Troy Aikman. He was your guy no matter what. At any point, did Troy ever come to you and ask for a trade back in the day?
Yes, he did. He and Lee Steinberg early on. Not a specific trade, but just said, look, it's not working out. I met him here in Los Angeles, and we talked about it when we were playing the Rams. But certainly that wasn't the direction that we wanted to go, and we just had to keep our eye on the ball. He was the best physically, and you had to give him time. That's what we've got to do with this young quarterback we've got right now.
You know, Jerry, looking back, your relationship with Jimmy was so interesting. I mean, at the time that you hired him, the take pretty much was you do not bring in a guy who does not have any head coaching experience in the NFL. You did that, you took a chance, and it paid handsomely, paid dividends. But then the relationship, of course, went that way. In retrospect, have you ever regretted that it ended sooner than maybe it had to?
Oh, I think that you could speculate a little bit or think what might have been. On the other hand, we'd had 5 great years together, and they were very intense years. And we'd known each other a long time in our lives. It didn't turn out exactly the way I intended it to. I'd given him a 10-year contract. I actually could see it basically happen in the way it happened with Coach Landry, who was with the Cowboys for 29 years. But it just didn't work out that way. And we knew that we had to separate right then, or otherwise we had to separate in a more embarrassing situation. Of course, the good news was that by bringing in players like Larry Allen and Deion Sanders, who may be the greatest at their position that have ever played, we were able to get that other Super Bowl under Barry Switzer. And, you know, I don't know if that would have happened or not had we just stayed the mark and basically kept on as we were.
So never once thought we had 3, we could have had 4 or 5. What you're telling me is maybe we wouldn't have got the 3rd had we not made the change.
I wouldn't have made the change from my perspective. I would not have made the change had I not thought that gave us a better chance to win a Super Bowl.
You know, I think you would understand that there have been guys that you've worked with that are opinionated, they're strong-willed, they're much like yourself. They have their own ideas. Was Jimmy that, or perhaps was he disloyal?
Well, I think that Jimmy is as smart as anybody that you could have ever wanted to work around, knows football, has great people skills, but I probably didn't do as good a job explaining to Jimmy how much of my life that I had put on the line. And so that him not coming from the same background, me not coming from the background that he had, we probably grew careless with our relationship with each other. And consequently, I became real sensitive. I know he became real sensitive. And certainly in my mind, one of us had to leave, and it certainly wasn't going to be me.
Let me ask you this. I've got about 30 seconds. Back in the day when you bought that time, the team, you sold pretty much everything to put yourself in a position. You burned the boats. There was no retreat. Have you come full circle, and do you feel that you're in the same position right now? The boats have been burned, and you're on that island. You've got to make it work.
Jim, that's a little bit the way that I operate. I do burn the bridges, and did do it when I bought the Cowboys. I did it when we had no one that ever had NFL experience. Jimmy was the coach. I was the general manager. I've done that, and usually I feel like that gives you the best chance to break out of the norm. And certainly, had I not burned my bridges and buying the Dallas Cowboys, I don't think that my life would have been anything like as positive as it's been over the last 12 or 13 years. I think we're in that right now.
Well, you came full circle, and you brought your team back to California, which brought you back in the studio. So great to see you.
Thank
Jerry,
you, Jim.
Thanks very much. Really good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys.